What if everything you knew about human evolution was only half the story? What if the great apes weren't our only ancestors, but just one branch of something far older, something that once swam beneath the ancient seas, and maybe still lingers in the depths today? Long before cities, before fire, before speech, Earth was a planet of oceans. Life began there. Every heartbeat, every breath you take is still marked by salt, by the rhythm of waves that shaped us. But what if, instead of leaving the water, we had stayed? Imagine a parallel world where humans evolved not on land, but underwater. No smoke, no wheels, no fire. Instead, light from bioluminescent algae illuminating coral temples. Communication not through words, but through color, vibration, and movement. A civilization carved from coral, not stone. Scientists have long debated something called the Aquatic Ape Hypothesis, the controversial idea that our ancestors once lived a semi-aquatic life. The shape of our bodies, the way we hold our breath, even the layer of fat beneath our skin, could all be remnants of that forgotten chapter. But what if it didn't end there? What if evolution took a different path? What would humans look like today if our ancestors never left the sea? Pause. Soft echo of underwater heartbeats. In this documentary, we dive deep into the alternate timeline of our species, an oceanic Earth where humanity evolved beneath the waves. Welcome to the world where humans never walked the land. To imagine what humanity might have become underwater, we must first return to where it all began, the cradle of life itself. Over 3.5 billion years ago, the first microorganisms arose in the ocean, microscopic architects of all future evolution. Every creature that has ever walked, flown, or crawled began in that same blue abyss. Life's earliest experiments, from jellyfish to trilobites, from fish to the first amphibians, all emerged from this liquid origin. When our distant ancestors, primitive fish, took their first hesitant steps onto land about 375 million years ago, it wasn't a conquest. It was a risk. The ocean was vast, protective, and familiar. Land was strange and harsh, yet something, hunger, curiosity, survival, drew them out. Now imagine for a moment that they stayed. The fork in evolution's road. In our real timeline, evolution favored those who adapted to land. Lungs replaced gills, fins became limbs. The line that would become primates, and eventually us, emerged millions of years later, far from the sea. But in our alternate world, a different branch took hold. Imagine early mammals, perhaps descendants of aquatic species like Ambulocetus, the walking whale, never fully returning to land. Instead, they developed a balance between air and water, forming an intelligent species adapted to both environments. This theory isn't pure fantasy. It draws inspiration from the Aquatic Ape Hypothesis, a scientific idea proposed in the 1960s by marine biologist Alistair Hardy and later popularized by writer Elaine Morgan. They suggested that many uniquely human traits, once thought to be meaningless quirks, might actually hint at a semi-aquatic past. Consider this: hairlessness. Unlike most primates, humans are almost hairless, a trait shared with aquatic mammals like dolphins and seals. Subcutaneous fat. Humans have a thick layer of fat under the skin, perfect for insulation in water. Voluntary breath control. We can consciously hold our breath, a rare ability among land mammals, but essential for diving. Tears and salt balance. Our tears and sweat systems regulate salt, a biological echo of the sea. Streamlined body shape. The proportions of the human body reduce drag in water far more efficiently than in dense forests or savannas. These clues paint a strange but intriguing picture. Maybe we are not only children of the savanna, but also of the shore. Traces of the aquatic human, in the fossil record. No fossils directly show an aquatic ape, but the hints are there, subtle and scattered. Around 6 to 8 million years ago, early hominins like Australopithecus afarensis lived near lakes and deltas. Their bones were found in areas rich with mollusks, fish, and water plants, suggesting a diet that relied heavily on aquatic food. Some even had bone structures adapted to long-distance wading or swimming. In particular, the fossilized remains of Lucy, discovered in Ethiopia in 1974, tell an interesting story. Though often depicted walking on dry savannas, recent studies show her environment was mosaic: wetlands, floodplains, and lagoons. Her species might have spent more time near water than once believed. And then, there's Homo erectus, one of our most adaptable ancestors. Evidence shows they crossed rivers, hunted near coastlines, and even used water to process food. Their survival strategy may have relied heavily on aquatic environments, a proto-version of the world we're imagining. Parallel realities of evolution. If we rewind evolution and let the dice roll again, what if those water-dependent species never moved inland? What if they followed the path of dolphins, seals, or sea otters, but kept evolving intelligence? Nature already gives us examples of how this might look. Dolphins and whales are descendants of land mammals that returned to the sea and developed large brains, complex social structures, and even languages of sound. Octopuses, despite being invertebrates, show remarkable intelligence, problem-solving, tool use, and emotional awareness. Sea otters use stones as tools, and cormorants fish cooperatively with humans, blurring the line between instinct and intellect. Could intelligence itself be inevitable, no matter where evolution unfolds? If so, then our underwater counterparts, Homo aquarius, perhaps, might have followed similar pressures: communication, cooperation, tool use. But instead of shaping the world with fire and metal, they would shape it with pressure, light, and motion. A world without fire. Here lies one of evolution's great paradoxes: fire. On land, it was humanity's greatest invention, the source of cooking, protection, and metallurgy. Underwater, fire is impossible. So, how would a civilization grow without it? They might use chemical bioluminescence as a tool, harvesting glow-producing organisms to light their cities. Their technology could rely on biology, not machinery. Coral grown into architecture, shells tuned into musical communication, energy drawn from ocean currents and geothermal vents. Instead of building upward, they'd expand outward, vast spiraling habitats following the contours of reefs and trenches. Their symbols and art might be expressed through light pulses, like underwater auroras. Language itself could become visual, not vocal. The deep sea as evolution's final frontier. Earth's oceans cover more than 70% of the planet, yet over 80% remain unexplored. Entire ecosystems thrive in darkness, bioluminescent life forms, bacteria that feed on chemical energy, creatures that defy our understanding of biology. In our world, we barely scratch the surface of these mysteries. But in theirs, this would be home. Perhaps their scholars would study thermoclines like we study astronomy, charting the great sky of the ocean above them. Their myths might speak of the land gods who live in the burning world above, just as ours once dreamed of beings below. The more we look at the evidence and the more we realize, the ocean never really let us go. It lives within us, in our blood, in our tears, in the rhythm of our heartbeat. We may have walked onto land, but the sea still whispers our name. Now let's journey into that other timeline, one shaped not by dust and desert winds, but by currents and tides. A timeline where the descendants of early apes did not walk upright on the savanna, but swam upright in shallow coastal waters. This is the world of Homo aquarius, the aquatic human. Scene 1. The shore of beginnings. Picture the coastline of East Africa, millions of years ago. not as it is today, but as a labyrinth of lagoons, mangroves, and coral shallows. In this version of history, an ancient primate species, fragile, hairless, curious, finds refuge here. Predators prowl inland, but in the water, they find safety. Food is abundant, fish, shellfish, seaweed, and slowly, generation by generation, they adapt. Their bodies begin to change. Fingers elongate into webbed hands. Their lungs become more efficient, allowing them to dive longer. Their eyes evolve to see clearly both in air and water, like a cormorant's. And fat, the same layer that insulates seals and whales, begins to envelop them. They are no longer fully ape, yet not quite human. They are something in between, shaped by the sea, molded by tides. Scene 2. The birth of intelligence, beneath the waves. In our world, early humans learned to survive through tools and fire. But here, underwater, their evolution takes a different path. Fire cannot burn, but pressure, light, and sound become their instruments. They learn to communicate through low-frequency clicks and hums that travel far through the water, a language of vibration and tone. Their speech resonates like songs, echoing through reefs. Perhaps intelligence itself evolves musically, a symphony of meaning carried by the sea. To gather food, they break open shells using stones, the first underwater tools. To hunt, they coordinate in groups, driving schools of fish into nets made from woven seagrass. And as they evolve social bonds, their gestures, flowing and expressive, become the art of communication itself. The ocean's resistance to motion makes every movement deliberate, graceful. Their culture becomes slow, fluid, meditative, like the tides they live by. Scene 3. Cities of coral and light. Music swells, shimmering tones as visuals reveal vast underwater structures, glowing faintly in bioluminescent light. Where we built cities of stone and metal, they grow theirs from living coral, guided by biology instead of machinery. Imagine spiraling towers of calcium and pearl, each one alive, pulsating softly with color. Schools of small fish move through open arches like citizens in a bustling city. Energy flows from geothermal vents, natural heat exchanged through organic membranes that power the ecosystem. Instead of electricity, they harness chemistry. Their technology is biological, symbiotic relationships with coral, algae, and bioluminescent species. Every building glows. Every pathway breathes. Civilization is literally alive. Their architecture reflects the same sacred geometry found in shells and waves, spirals, circles, fractals, as if evolution and spirituality are one. In this world, science and nature are not opposites. They are the same current, flowing in harmony. Scene 4. The rhythm of life and society. The ocean's rhythm governs everything. There are no seasons, no days, no nights, only the cycles of the moon and the deep currents. Time itself is measured differently. A year might be the full turning of a current. A day might be when the tide rises and falls twice. Their families live in pods, close, cooperative groups, much like dolphins or whales. Every member has a role: the hunter, the nurturer, the singer, the guardian. Their songs carry history. Memory is not written, it is sung. Every melody a map, every rhythm a story. Perhaps, like whales, they remember entire migrations through sound alone. Conflict is rare. The sea punishes aggression. The strong current favors the patient and the cooperative. So evolution favors empathy, awareness, and unity. While our species learned dominance over nature, theirs learns balance within it. Scene 5. The evolution of mind and spirit. As their brains grow larger, something extraordinary happens. They begin to dream, not of fire or conquest, but of connection. Underwater, all sound and vibration blend. Every heartbeat is part of the same pulse. They begin to feel what we might call collective consciousness, an awareness shared between individuals through subtle waves. Their spirituality is born from this unity. They worship not a god above, but the great current, an eternal flow connecting all beings. Their temples are open spaces where light filters through water like stained glass. Meditation is literal. They float, suspended, breathing slowly, their minds drifting in sync with the ocean's rhythm. Knowledge is passed not by writing, but through resonance, chants that vibrate patterns into choral memory. In their world, history is sung, not written. Scene 6. The Great Depths. But even this world is not without danger. The deep ocean, dark, silent, immense, calls to them. Some venture down into the abyss, chasing myths of enlightenment or discovery. Down there, pressure crushes everything, light disappears, yet new forms of life thrive. Perhaps they find something there, ancient beings, remnants of life before the sun touched the surface. Or perhaps in those depths, they face the same question we do when we look at the stars. What else is out there? To them, the deep is what space is to us, the ultimate mystery. We think of humanity as bound to the land, as masters of fire and sky. But the ocean, it was our first home. And if we had stayed, if we had followed that forgotten path, our civilization might have been gentler, slower, wiser, a species that never needed to conquer. But even in this peaceful underwater world, evolution is never still. Every rise gives birth to a fall. Every balance invites disruption. The story of Homo aquarius would not only be one of beauty, but of survival, adaptation, and the inevitable clash between light and depth. Scene 1. The struggle for depth and light. For millions of years, the shallow seas provided safety and abundance, but as climates shifted, coastlines changed, and the great ice ages came and went, the ocean's level rose and fell violently. Some of these aquatic humans remained near the surface, where sunlight still touched coral gardens. Others ventured deeper, evolving to survive in darkness. Over generations, two distinct subspecies emerged: the luminarians, dwellers of the warm shallows, bright-eyed, social, artistic. They built vast coral metropolises glowing with life and harmony, and the abyssins, pale, silent beings of the deep. They learned to see through total darkness. Their eyes, large and silver, reflected even the faintest flicker of light. Their skin grew translucent like glass. To the luminarians, they became something like spirits, or perhaps demons, the unseen watchers of the deep. What began as adaptation slowly turned into mythology. Scene 2. The First Great Divergence. In our own history, humans split into tribes, nations, and cultures. The same would happen here beneath the sea. The ocean, vast and endless, became divided by pressure and light. The shallow dwellers, poetic, expressive, worshipped the sun above, believing the light filtering through the surface was the source of life. The deep dwellers, in turn, revered the thermal heart, the fiery vents that fed them warmth and nutrients from below. Two civilizations, one born of the sun, the other of the earth's core, now lived unaware of each other's purpose. And then, contact returned. When tectonic shifts destroyed the coral cities, entire populations fled downward into the depths. The meeting of the two lineages was not peaceful. War, though silent, erupted in the black waters. There were no flames, no explosions, no screams, only vibrations of violence carried through the sea. Spears of hardened coral, sonic pulses as weapons, swarms of engineered jellyfish. It was the ocean's first, and perhaps only, war. Scene 3. The Fall of the Coral Empires. No civilization, not even one born of nature, escapes the fate of collapse. The luminarians' greatest gift, their harmony with life, became their downfall. They had relied too deeply on the coral networks they built. When ocean currents changed and temperature shifts caused mass bleaching, their living architecture began to die. Without their symbiotic homes, they drifted, scattered nomads of the sea. Meanwhile, the abyssins, masters of adaptation, survived, but at a cost. They grew cold, emotionless, calculating. The deeper they went, the more isolated they became. Over time, their minds fractured from the unity that once defined them. Perhaps, in some haunting way, our modern intellect, divided, competitive, restless, mirrors theirs. Scene 4. The Forgotten Migration. Then came the Great Upheaval, a geological cataclysm that changed everything. Massive underwater earthquakes split continents, drained seas, and trapped many of their kind in rising lagoons. The ocean retreated from certain coasts, exposing miles of once submerged terrain. And for the first time in countless generations, some of the aquatic humans stood on land, their webbed limbs now heavy, lungs gasping for dense air, eyes blinking painfully under the sun. But necessity, as always, drives adaptation. A few of them survived. Over time, their skin dried, their gills faded, their posture straightened. Perhaps these survivors became us. Could it be that Homo sapiens, our species, is not the land-born ape, but the descendant of aquatic beings who learned to walk again? A forgotten migration buried beneath millions of years of evolution. Scene 5. Science and skepticism. Of course, this idea, the Aquatic Ape Hypothesis, remains one of the most controversial in anthropology. Mainstream scientists argue there's no direct fossil evidence for a fully aquatic ancestor. They believe our adaptations, like breath control, fat layers, and swimming ability, could have evolved for other reasons. But others disagree. Marine biologist Alistair Hardy once wrote, "Why should man alone among primates have naked skin, subcutaneous fat, and a love for the sea, unless once, long ago, he lived within it?" Some researchers even point to infant behavior. Newborn humans instinctively hold their breath underwater and swim reflexively before they can crawl. Coincidence or memory? Even our obsession with the ocean, our longing for the sound of waves, our fascination with the unknown below, feels like nostalgia. Perhaps we are drawn to the sea because it is not alien, but home. Scene 6. The mystery of the deep signals. In recent decades, scientists have recorded strange rhythmic sounds in the deepest parts of the ocean, unexplained bloops that defy categorization. Some are likely geological or animal in origin, but a few remain unclassified, resembling patterned frequencies, repeating, almost structured. Could they be natural? Almost certainly. But what if they're not? If an aquatic civilization had evolved and retreated to the depths, they would exist in a realm we can hardly reach, beyond sunlight, beyond pressure tolerance, beyond steel. They wouldn't need to hide. They would simply exist where we cannot go. Perhaps the mythic creatures of our legends, mermaids, sea gods, sirens, are echoes of memories passed down from the time before land, stories preserved in dreams, half remembered by a species that once lived in both worlds. Scene 7. Reflection on the two humanities. What truly defines us? Intelligence, empathy, or domination? If we compare ourselves to our underwater counterparts, one thing becomes clear. Our evolution on land made us masters of fire, but slaves to greed. Theirs, beneath the waves, may have led to serenity, but also stagnation. Two paths, both imperfect, both human in their own way. Perhaps evolution was never about perfection, only adaptation. The story of Homo aquarius is not a fantasy, but a mirror. It asks, what might we have become if we had chosen harmony over contro? Maybe somewhere in the silent abyss, the ocean still remembers them. And when we stare into the waves, perhaps they are staring back. It's easy to dismiss underwater humans as fantasy, but when you look deeper, this story isn't about biology. It's about what we've forgotten, because in many ways the traits of Homo aquarius still live within us. We breathe air, but we are still bound to the rhythm of the ocean. Every cell in our body carries salt, the same concentration as the ancient seas. Our blood plasma mirrors the chemistry of early Earth's oceans. When we cry, we taste the sea again. So perhaps the question isn't, what if humans had evolved underwater? Perhaps the real question is, how much of the ocean still lives within us? Scene 1, the echo of the ocean. Within science has proven that our connection to the sea is not merely poetic, it's physiological. The vagus nerve, running from our brainstem to our heart and lungs, slows our heartbeat when we submerge underwater, a built-in dive reflex. It's ancient, instinctive, and universal. Even the act of holding our breath, controlling the body's most automatic function, gives us a glimpse into our lost adaptability. No other primate can do it like we can. When freedivers descend hundreds of meters below the surface, their bodies awaken something prehistoric, the same reflexes that might once have belonged to an aquatic ancestor. So maybe, in every one of us, there is a quiet memory of that ancient world. The sound of muffled waves, the slow weight of water, the stillness of the deep. Scene 2, the lessons of the ocean civilization. If humanity had evolved underwater, our technology, our cities, our culture, everything would have grown in harmony with nature, not against it. We wouldn't burn forests or pollute skies, because we would live within our environment, not on top of it. Our power would come from the currents, the tides, and the planet's geothermal heartbeat. Our buildings wouldn't destroy ecosystems, they'd become ecosystems. In this alternate timeline, progress wouldn't mean separation from nature, it would mean deeper connection. And maybe that's the lesson we've forgotten. Because even though we've built cities of glass and steel, we still depend on the same fragile balance. The ocean regulates our climate, produces half the oxygen we breathe, and absorbs the carbon we create. Yet, in only a few centuries, we've begun to poison it, as if trying to kill our oldest ancestor. If the ocean dies, we die too, not just biologically, but spiritually. Scene 3, the mirror of myth and memory. Throughout human history, our myths have remembered what our science forgot. From the Babylonian goddess Tiamat, the ocean mother who gave birth to all gods, to Poseidon, ruler of the deep and shaker of Earth's foundations, to the African water spirits, the Japanese Ningyo, the Nordic mermaids. Every culture tells of beings between human and oceanic. Why does this myth repeat everywhere? Maybe because it's not imagination. It's memory, collective memory, stored not in fossils or artifacts, but in the deepest parts of the human psyche. We dream of water because we once came from it. When we listen to the sound of rain or waves against rocks, something inside us feels calm, as though we've come home. That serenity is not nostalgia. It's recognition. Scene 4. What we can learn from the underwater human. If Homo aquarius represents the path of harmony and Homo sapiens the path of dominance, then our challenge is clear: to reunite the two. We must learn again how to live within nature, to merge intelligence with empathy, technology with respect, progress with sustainability. We are now entering a time when humanity must adapt again to new climates, new environments, and perhaps even new worlds. The lesson of the underwater human is timeless. Evolution is not only physical, it's moral. To survive, intelligence is not enough. You need balance, cooperation, flow. Every major crisis on Earth, war, greed, pollution, disconnection, comes from forgetting that we are not separate from nature. We are part of one vast living system, a biosphere that once began as saltwater. Perhaps that's what the ocean keeps trying to tell us, not with words, but with rhythm, with gravity, with silence. Scene 5. Returning to the water. In modern times, some humans are already returning to the water, not biologically, but spiritually. Freedivers speak of transcendent peace when descending into the deep, as though their consciousness dissolves. Scientists and artists alike have compared it to meditation, or even enlightenment. The ocean strips away identity, language, thought, until only awareness remains, and in that awareness, we rediscover something sacred: stillness. In a world of chaos, screens, and endless noise, the ocean reminds us to breathe, to listen, to move with the tide, not against it. Maybe the next stage of evolution is not gills or fins, but understanding. The ability to live in balance with the water that made us. Scene 6. Humanity's future, land and sea. Now, as sea levels rise and climates shift again, the question becomes hauntingly real. What if our future truly lies in returning to the ocean? Projects around the world, from floating cities to underwater habitats, are trying to create sustainable life beneath the waves. Perhaps, unknowingly, we are retracing an ancient path, one our ancestors might have already walked or swam. If humans had evolved underwater, they might look at us, the land dwellers, as exiles trying to find our way back home. Maybe the sea never stopped calling us. Maybe we're just now learning to listen. Scene 7. The metaphor of the current. There's a saying among divers: you can't fight the current, you can only move with it. That is the essence of wisdom our aquatic selves would have known from the beginning. In every challenge, in every loss, in every change, life flows, like water, through resistance. When we move with it, we adapt. When we fight it, we drown. So, in a strange way, asking, what if humans evolved underwater, isn't about alternate history at all. It's about understanding ourselves. It's about realizing that survival, real survival, isn't about domination, but harmony. The ocean does not conquer, it absorbs. It doesn't resist, it flows. It doesn't hold, it lets go. Narrator, softly reflective. Maybe, in the end, the greatest truth of our species isn't that we learned to walk upright, but that we never stopped being fluid inside. We began this journey with a question: what if humans had evolved underwater? But along the way, that question transformed. It stopped being about gills or fins or coral cities. It became something far deeper, a mirror reflecting who we are and who we could have been. Because the truth is, the ocean is not just our past. It is our origin, our teacher, and perhaps our destiny. Scene 1. The memory beneath our skin. Every human carries the ocean within them. The rhythm of our hearts echoes the waves. The salt in our blood mirrors the sea, the amniotic fluid that protects every unborn child. It's a personal ocean, a sacred echo of the first life on Earth. When we float, we remember. When we close our eyes and listen to the sea, we are listening to the oldest sound the planet has ever known, the pulse of creation itself. We like to think of evolution as progress, a climb from simple to complex, from water to land, from instinct to intelligence. But perhaps evolution is a circle, not a ladder. Perhaps every step forward is a reminder to return, not physically, but spiritually, to what we once were. Scene 2. The forgotten wisdom. If humanity had evolved underwater, maybe we would have never learned to burn forests or choke the air with smoke. Maybe we would have built our homes within living reefs instead of crushing them. Maybe we would measure progress not by conquest, but by connection. But even on land, that possibility is not lost. It still flows within us, waiting to be remembered. The ocean civilization we imagined, Homo aquarius, is not gone. It's an idea that survives in our DNA, in our stories, in our longing to return to something pure. When we stare at the horizon, when we dream of the sea, it's not escapism. It's memory. The sea does not forget. It carries the history of every living thing, including us. Scene 3. The Parallel Future. Now imagine a future where we finally listen, where cities are built like coral, alive, breathing, symbiotic, where we draw energy from tides instead of oil, where technology learns from nature instead of replacing it. In that future, we may not have gills or fins, but we would have wisdom. And wisdom, not anatomy, is the true sign of evolution. We may never grow to breathe underwater, but we can still learn to live as if we do, to flow instead of resist, to harmonize instead of conquer, to protect instead of consume. Because in the end, the ocean's greatest lesson is simple. Everything that flows together survives together. Scene 4. The Final Reflection. So, what if humans had evolved underwater? Perhaps we would be wiser. Perhaps we would be gentler. Perhaps we would have learned that strength isn't about standing tall on land, but about moving in rhythm with the current. But here's the truth. We don't have to be the water people of a forgotten timeline to learn their wisdom. We are still the same life and the same story, written in salt, light, and time. The ocean gave us life once. It can guide us again. Maybe we didn't evolve underwater, but maybe we were never meant to leave. If this journey made you think, if it made you feel, then help us keep exploring the hidden stories of humanity. Like, subscribe, and share this video so more people can join our search for the forgotten origins of our species. Because the truth of who we are is still waiting somewhere in the deep.